Night at the office. No phone calls, no messages. Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore. A professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And we're going to check the audio again. Sorry about that. It jumps into the camera there, but all good. All right. Sorry about that, folks. We have to double check that. I checked it several times before going live. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines open and available. Our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. That appears on the screen here in real time, and we try to work it into the conversation. Don't forget the station does stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app. That means you can take us anywhere. I love that device or that ability to do that. Tell Alexa to play WCRN. She'll do that with no questions asked. And I do stream the show on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, MANGI. So X, Facebook, Twitch, TV, LinkedIn profile, and we do stream live to Rumble. Multiple ways to listen, multiple ways to watch the show as well. So lines are open and available. I don't know if you guys were catching this, but if you missed it, South African president is in the Oval right now. Trump is hosting in there. He reached out, called the president. We had the first 59 South Africans come to the country for seeking asylum, and asylum in the true sense that they're coming straight from the country of where they're endangered to the United States. They're not living in another country perfectly peaceful for a decade before coming here. So the Cyril Ramaphosa, he's in the Oval now. In this, if you haven't seen it, I'm sure there'll be clips of it. There'll be replays of it. And this is the type of thing that really does set Trump apart from previous presidents, all presidents. So the guy reaches out to Trump because he's nervous that basically, you know, he's going to get on the list, the bad list, right? You know what we call those lists. And he wants to mitigate that. He wants to talk to Trump. He actually said, look, you know, we need American technology to fight crime. But what Trump did, I mean, he called this guy on the carpet, and he called an NBC reporter on the carpet live. But here he has President Ramaphosa in the Oval, and he has his staff turn the lights down in the Oval Office and play the videos of some of the political groups singing and chanting, kill the white farmer, kill the white farmer, take their land away. Speakers at rallies saying, shoot. And then the video, which I'm sure you've seen if you're checking out news online at all, because you're not, and Trump brings this up, by the way, you're not going to see mainstream media cover this story. And he has the video of the 1,000+ cars along the roadway where there were white crosses, over 1,000 of these white crosses, all representing the grave. It's a farmer, mostly white. President pointed out, and again, I don't know if he thought this was a bigger flex than it was, but pointed out, well, they kill black farmers, or they kill black people too. Not a lot of black farmers, but they kill black people, not just the white people. They kill black people too. So I guess you're saying it's okay because it's not really just about race. We kill everybody equally. I don't know what the flex was there. But Trump has created this whole new thing, this whole new type of diplomacy. No BS diplomacy, maybe we call it. I don't know. I just can't imagine seeing Biden or even Obama, anybody, Bush, anybody doing that to a president or the head of state, saying this is what our problem is with you. Here, let's watch what's going on. So I love it. It's great. I'm glad there's a president who isn't going to ignore certain things and say, well, this is what our problem is. Look what's going on in your country. How do you answer that? This guy was very uncomfortable to have to sit there and watch this. Then a reporter from NBC, right? There's a crowd. Elon's there, by the way, and he's South African. And the president made a point to say Elon's here, but not for this reason. He was here for another reason, talking about shooting rockets into space and stuff. But he happens to be South African. And this reporter, I'm not sure who it is. I know the first name is Peter because you hear them reference him as Peter. But in the middle of this, and this is a very serious topic, is it not? The execution of white farmers and taking their land, and you've got a political party that has equal time to the microphone and the stage, and they have the rallies, and you know the deal by now. And the reporter asks about the jet. We're back to the freaking jet. And Trump just, again, lays into him. He says, really, you're really a horrible reporter. NBC, ABC, they're all horrible. We go back to your studio and do some research. You're a terrible reporter. And then when he's talking to the president, he references and points out the fact that this is the kind of thing, if our media was legit, they would actually be covering what's going on in South Africa. They'd be covering these murders and confiscation of land. Not like, and he actually used the word, not like this jerk, referencing the NBC reporter. Some might argue that's not very presidential. But I'd take that over the ignoring issues that are uncomfortable to talk about. Yeah, I'd do that. I'm fine with that. So that is okay as far as I'm concerned. That kind of talk. I lost a little something here for a second. But to see this happening in real time, to see the president tell the president of South Africa, this is what our problem is. This is going on. Now, what's interesting is, I think it's Cyril Profosa. He actually is looking at this, and he says to Trump, to some of the footage, I've never seen this before. He asked, where is this? And then Trump pulls a stack of articles out that's got to be about an inch thick, maybe inch and a half. And he's holding up the headlines. He's going through article and article, and there's the president of South Africa saying, can I actually have copies of that? Now I'm wondering, do you not have the internet? Do you not watch the news? Do you not have a staff that briefs you about what's going on in your own country? That's a little weird. But anyway, he then tries to explain to Trump that, here in America, we too take land. Yeah, we do. It's called eminent domain. And there is a mechanism in place that the government can, in fact, take private property if there's a greater good. Now, a developer can't take your property because he wants to develop some condos. But the state can go through a process. There's a court proceeding. A judge has to listen to the arguments, and they can invoke eminent domain and maybe take some of your land because they need to build a highway or train station or something. I first heard or knew about this, I remember as a kid, because what we call the Beetleback. So if you go to Framingham Natick by the Natick Mall, Route 9 and Speen Street used to come to just a four-way stop. It was just two roads crossing. And then they did this huge Beetleback project, right, where they wanted to put in all the ramps and the ways to get on in and out of the Natick Mall and Sherwood Plaza and all of that. And there was a gas station right at the corner. And I remember this story. It just stuck with me. And I was I don't know, 10 maybe. And listening to the news and listening to my parents talk about it, because they wanted to take the pumps, not even the whole gas station, but where the pumps were, they needed that land to put in the off-ramp headed east for 9 to get onto Speen Street. So they invoked eminent domain to take this away, and it hit the Middlesex News, and it was this big thing because the guy had 6 kids, and this is how he fed his family. This is how he kept the roof over their head. But they took it. Now, in our process of eminent domain in the United States, you're supposed to be paid fair market value. Now, see, fair market value is what is someone willing to pay for your property. That's what your property's worth, by the way. You can do all the appraisals you want in CMAs and all that kind of stuff, but it really is worth what someone's willing to pay. And people can skew the comps, because if they really want a property, they overpay. But also when something goes because grandma or grandpa passed away a few years ago, the family lets the house sit there, it degrades, and now they sell it for half or a fraction of what it's worth. That screws your comps up. So you got to back those out. But that's eminent domain here. But in Africa, Trump retaliated, or retorted, I should say, with yes, but they kill the farmer that's usually white, and they just take the land. And there's no consequence. And that's where this guy gets into the fact that, well, we need American technology to help us with crime. That, at face value, I'll take that as a legitimate point, not an argument to allow this, because we investigated and prosecuted murders in this country long before we had the technology that we have. So I don't know if that's a pass on this, but let's see what happens. But anyway, if you haven't seen it, it was very interesting to watch this whole exchange. And I don't think the South African president expected to be put in that position and to have the video played live in the Oval Office showing him his political, or some political, not his, but political parties in South Africa chanting, kill the farmer, take the land, shoot them dead. Pretty interesting. Folks, we're going to take our first break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines open and available today. Flying the board back at HQ as I broadcast from the Cameo studios. Again, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And, of course, you can text us at 617-297-8388. Back in 2 and 10, folks.
The best Italian cuisine served by some of the nicest folks you'll ever meet is at Ziti's Italian Trattoria. It's fine Italian cooking at the Speedway Shopping Center, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro. It's like sitting down with your family for an authentic home-cooked Italian meal. From intimate dinners to catering for events of all sizes. From pizzas and calzones to classic Italian dinners. Every meal at Ziti's is one you'll remember. Head on down to Ziti's, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro.
Hi, folks. This is Mike Stacey, head professional at Norton Country Club, welcoming you to the start of the 2025 golf season. Norton Country Club is a championship 18-hole golf course located just minutes off of 495. The course came through the winter grade, and we're open for daily fee, as well as having membership opportunities and outings available. Our clubhouse is a great venue for your wedding or group gathering needs. If you're interested, call 508-285-2400, extension 1 for events, or 103 for golf, as well as nortoncountryclub.com. Hope to see you out there.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
Did you know by age 35, most people start to notice the effects of declining hormone levels? Symptoms include lack of energy, less focus, decreased sex drive, weight gain, and poor quality sleep. Twist 25 DHEA cream helps men and women 35 and up to maintain vitality, youthful vigor, enhanced mood and focus, and a better night's sleep. As a base building block for hormones, DHEA gives the body a key foundation it uses to make hormones. Visit twist25.com to learn more or call 888-489-4782. 888-4-TWIST-25. 25.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second segment of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCR and Radio Central. Of course, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Text line 617-297-8388. Actually, let's jump to the phones. Mark is waiting patiently through the break. Hey, Mark, what say you?
Yeah, it's interesting what's happening in the country of South Africa. You know, it sounds an awful lot to me like history repeating itself. What another country that used to be called in Africa called Rhodesia, which is now Rwanda. But the funny thing about Rhodesia, which has, it's fast forward. Because what Rhodesia suffered, 20 some odd years ago, give or take, is now happening in South Africa. Same exact thing, same exact almost circumstances. Everything is the same. So what they did is they busted out Rhodesia, and now they're busting out South Africa. That's exactly what's going on. Because I'll tell you, Rhodesia, at one time, wasn't only the major exporter of food to the entire continent of Africa, they also exported food to the UK and Western Europe. That's how much surplus they have. Now, they can't even afford, to manage to feed their own indigenous population. Look it up, folks.
Absolutely. All right, Mark, that's actually a great point. Thank you for that. Always appreciate the call. Absolutely. And good history lesson on Rwanda. And, the thing about it, Trump actually said something about this is kind of the opposite of apartheid. I don't know if that was the best thing to say. But, look, America, obviously, the U.S. is going to get involved in this. He's there. He reached out to the president, called him directly, said, "Can I come talk to you? We need your help. Yes, we got to fix this." And but this leads me to, if you missed it, also well worth the effort to go watch Secretary Marco Rubio at the congressional hearing, and the jamoke that flew down to have the margarita with the gangbanger in Venezuela. It was playing to his base, doing his typical stuff and trying to, embarrass or do a gotcha moment with Marco Rubio. And I got to tell you, I'm liking Marco Rubio. I think this was a perfect spot for him, a position to hold. It's a great resume builder. I think he's going to be a serious contender, whether it's 28 or 32 or whatever for the presidency. I like the way he handles himself. I love the way he handles the press. And he basically said to what the hell, what's his name? Now it's gone out of my head. I know you can text or call me. The senator that flew down. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it at the second, but he said, I regret voting for you now. And Rubio says, well, I got to tell you, if you have a problem with me and regret voting for me, I must do something right. And then he referenced the Kilmar, the gangbanger. He said, the one you went down and had a margarita with. Again, I don't know if Trump has broke the seal, has shown that it's okay to jab back, that you don't have to do what Republicans have done for decades. Apologize for having their positions. Apologize for taking a stand, or worse, never taking the stand, and allowing this outrageous stuff to be said about them, about the positions, lie about the positions, and say nothing. Trump just doesn't take it. So I don't know if this, obviously it has always been in Marco Rubio, but it's almost as if now that Trump has just become the no BS politician, it seems like it's given some kind of license or confidence to other politicians to also. Marjorie Taylor Greene is pretty feisty too. But the exchange with Rubio, again, that's also worth taking a look at. Very interesting. Didn't take any guff from it at all. And to the point where that senator was it from New Jersey, I guess, is I don't know, kind of whiny about, he said something mad at me, and it's just well worth the watch, by the way. So the other thing I did want to touch about here is Maine. Our neighbors, as a matter of fact, Maine used to be part of Massachusetts. So it's a free, you know the story there, right? I don't know if you're right. Maine's been a battleground for this debate over the transgender athletes in girls sports, biological men in girls sports. And especially since President Trump's executive order, and then remember the little to-do at the White House, you're going to follow it, I'll see you in court. Oh, great, that should be an easy one. But if you missed it, Rep. Laurel Libby, she's a Republican from Auburn, Maine. And she did a post taking a position that she doesn't think biological males should be in female sports, as do 80, 90, I think it's a 90%, 90-10 issue. And she did a Facebook post criticizing Maine's policy, which did allow these transgender females, meaning, and you always put the gender they trans to. So when somebody says transgender female, so you understand that means it's a biological male who is now trying to live the life as a female. They identify as a female. They don't have to do a surgery, by the way. For most of the time, there's a lot of transgender people who then just identify as the gender they want, the sex they want, and then dress accordingly, which to me reduces it to costume. Or in this case, you could call it woman face. I mean, why not? So she wrote this Facebook post criticizing Maine's policy, which allows biological males to identify as females and participate in women's sports, girls' sports, and based on their gender under the Maine Human Rights Act. Well, her post went viral, drew attention. Trump saw it, who clashed with Janet Mills over federal funding. That was the White House exchange. And the Democratic-controlled Maine House censored Libby. Now, the legal fight reached SCOTUS. Supreme Court went right up. She asked for emergency ruling on this. And yesterday, I should point out, part of this censure that they did in Maine, they didn't remove her from the state legislature, but they took her voting rights away. I didn't even know that was a thing. They said you can stay as an elected official, meaning you're hired by the people in your district, but you can't vote on anything. We don't like the way you vote. We don't like what you say. So we're not going to remove you, but you're irrelevant to the process. What the hell are you talking about? And I remember when this happened, and I said, oh, I hope the court steps in. And it did. It went straight up. She asked for emergency relief on this. And the court, the Supreme Court, said you have to reinstate those voting rights. Where did that idea even come from? And how would they think that's anywhere acceptable in America? So they stripped her voting and speaking rights. That's the other thing. I didn't say that. So not only did they take the ability of the elected representative for that district, the voting right or ability away from her, which denies all of those residents that she's the representative for and that voted for her, and those that didn't vote for her, she represents them now, do not have a voice. So they stripped her of her voting rights and her speaking rights. So not only did they say you cannot vote, but you can't even talk, even in the chamber or online. And she said, until you apologize, and then you use the verbiage and you accept what we tell you as our reality. So these are the things you can't vote. You can't even talk about any of this until you apologize for thinking on your own. And then you have to use the words we want, the verbiage we want, and you have to agree with us pretending that that's a female. And a punishment she refused to accept. And good for Libby. So Libby's legal fight reached Supreme Court. SCOTUS got involved, which ruled yesterday to restore her privileges, citing free speech and representation concerns. And it's a constitutional win, while critics argue it's risk students' safety. That's the fallback catch-all. If you don't agree with us, the transgender students are at risk, right? The violence. If you don't agree with us, that's violence. Now, the SCOTUS did this in a 7-2 unsigned order. An emergency request to restore their voting rights and speaking rights. That's the one. Wow. And she's been blocked with these things. Her rights have been taken away since February. And this was a 75-70 party line censure vote that took these away. I would question every one of those 75 who voted to remove her speaking rights and her voting rights need to go back to civics class or read the Constitution and maybe their voting rights, because they're too stupid and ignorant to really have the right to vote. So Libby's February 17th post identified transgender high school pole vaulter in it. And that's where that all came from. And it was, let me remember which one, one of the female Supreme Court, the Kenya Jackson. In her questions are allowed, which, by the way, Roberts, because she kept talking over the attorney, reined her in, which I talked about this a couple of shows ago. He needs to rein in the whole thing. But the point is, we're coming against the clock. She said, I don't think it's that important of a vote. So that's a whole nother debate. What do you mean it's not important enough? But we have to take our mid-show break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Back in 2 and 10, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. So many clouds out there today. Some pockets of drizzle are expected to develop at times during the afternoon hours, so keep that in mind. And temperatures are going to feel pretty chilly. It's going to feel like early April out there with highs only in the lower 50s for today. And we've got more of a chill tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow, weather alert is back. Nor'easter coming through with times of heavy rain and gusty winds. Conditions are set to peak tomorrow afternoon. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Information central to your day from Radio Central, 830 WCRN.
How can you protect your retirement nest egg in these turbulent times? Many retirees or soon-to-be retirees are worried about market volatility. Hi, this is Bob Lobel. I found the Visper Group to be unique in retirement planning. They have 3 separate divisions to their practice: retirement income planning, wealth management, and legal services. Working together as a team, they can provide a holistic approach to retirement planning that I haven't seen anywhere else. To learn more, you can ask Jeff Monfett to send you a free report. How to keep your nest egg protected in these turbulent times and still guarantee the income you need for a comfortable retirement. Jeff is a highly skilled retirement planning specialist, an attorney, and a member of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. Call the Visper Group at 877-421-6700 or visit their website at thevispergroup.com. That's the Visper, VISPER Group.com. The Visper Group is a Better Business Bureau A+ rated firm.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Of course, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Text line at 617-297-8388. Let's go to the phones. Ken's waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Good afternoon, Joe. I do like your two stories today, and I summarized them with a headline: lefties are so weak in how to fight, they fall into it over and over with Trump.
Yeah, the Trump train. This main thing is just I'm flabbergasted by some of it, because I think it's 9,000 voters, right, are in her district, effectively silencing their representation for this. And the Democrats in Maine are drop right back to it's citing transgender athlete safety. That somehow that is. Now, I heard this. We saw Worcester, right, vote to become a sanctuary city for transgender people. And my question still unanswered: from what exactly? Because I have no knowledge, Ken, of any authority or group of people or whatever going around rounding up transgender people or doing so, like, from what exactly is it? There's no federal policy that is going to harm them.
Fake news.
I mean, things are right now. The court upheld, sure, you can ban it in the military. You can ban transgender in the military. Places are banning, no longer can a biological male play as a female, because it is, in my opinion, very unfair to the females. These sports these young ladies and girls are on paths, right, for scholarships and to get into colleges and to maybe get to the Olympics. Whatever their path is, I think it's unfairly altered by not anything they've done. But your thoughts?
You make one big mistake.
Sure.
That the opposition is rational and logical. The solution, the answer always is follow the money. Because I have filled you in on the answer on this, right?
On the what now?
The governor's sister. You haven't heard the governor's sister story? I thought I told you.
No, I don't think. I've always said when it comes to transgender, bigger outside of the main case, in general, same thing, Ken. Follow the money, because I don't know if everybody realizes that first of all, these doctors who were providing surgery and this kind of treatment, especially without the parents' knowledge when they're a minor, their license should be called in question. But the point I'm making on this is when somebody transgenders, they are on medication for the rest of their lives, hormone therapy, that this is going to turn into hundreds of thousands, and depending if they're young enough, it could be million or more of income and revenue, because you're fighting nature. You don't, it's not a surgery and you're done. And that surgery is 100,000, right? Plus you've got to be on medication and hormone treatment for the rest of your life. And if you're transgender female, there's even daily things you have to do to maintain it. So follow that money. That's a big financial gain to the medical field to do these surgeries, Ken. But what's the story with the governor's wife?
No.
Governor's sister, you said.
The governor's sister is cashing in, is one of the primary people who are cashing in, because she's tied in with a medical facility locally that's doing exactly what you're talking about. Surprise, surprise.
Really? Okay. All right.
It tells it all.
No, I don't remember you telling me this. If you did, I forgot it, but I would have thought I would remember that.
Maybe I told it to Mike recently.
Yeah.
Within the last week or two.
Yeah.
But now you know too.
Yeah, but this is Janet Mills. So her sister is she a sister a physician, or is she just in the medical and somehow?
No. She's a higher up in a medical facility that provides the service.
Got it. Okay. As usual, folks, right? Follow the money. You always got to ask who's what's to be gained, what's to be lost, who's gaining, who's losing. You know, and if you do follow it, it's usually going to turn up an answer somewhere. Why do you think there was so much pushback with Doge? From both sides, by the way. There were a lot of Republicans, Ken, who were a little nervous about how far are they going to look into things. Because one of the biggest issues, I guess is the way to put it, and I've talked about this actually for a few years now, are NGOs. That's the catch-all money laundering distribution loophole that they have.
Via USAID or USAID.
Yeah.
And there's a new number that on USAID, how much actually gets to the recipients? Oh, about 13%.
Yeah.
It's
That's
a big scam.
horrible.
It's just nothing more than a political laundering system. And thank goodness we jumped on that early.
You know, there are some websites, folks, right? If you want to look at, or say you want to, contribute to Tunnels for Towers or one of these vets things or Shrine, so whatever, St. Jude, you can look up on a couple of sites. I can post them on my Facebook page for you, but you can look at their rating because there are Overwatch, right? Private or civilian type Overwatch organizations that will look at their filing, because when they're 503c and they're nonprofits, they have to file and it's public record. And they look at those filings to see what percentage is actually eaten up in the administrative and what goes to it. So when you have even 13% going to the cause is ridiculous. But 13% in administrative is kind of considered high now by certain standards, because you look at these like Tunnels to Tower, I use that as an example. I think their overhead is under 10%. It's 6 or 7%. I mean, so majority of every dollar is in fact going to what they do, and maybe that's something you should all look at before you write a check to somebody.
And Joe, going to the first issue you brought up today.
Mm-hmm. Oh, were you watching that?
Well, no, all I saw was what was leading up to it.
Okay.
It's like this guy's in the old world, but then forever since he's been in power, the leftists, the globalists, they worship at his altar, and he hasn't figured out that the game's changed, buddy. So I reference people to know that yes, this is a real story in South Africa.
Yeah.
The documentary Farmlands by Lauren Southern, produced in 2018 when she was just like 21 years old. It is riveting and tells you just how despicable they are in that nation. Made it when I heard the refugee story, it was like, oh, finally. And I love it the way Rubio was attacked on it by the Kane and Van Hollen is the name you're trying to come up with. And
Van Hollen, thank you. That was the one I couldn't remember. Yeah, he really made him look like a whiny little bee. But Kane was another one who starts getting into, he brought up the whole race. And basically, Rubio turned around and said, wait a minute, you're the one who brought up the race. I'm not talking about race. You are, man. And of course, Kane just realized he just kind of made himself look a little racist. And he's like, whoa, that doesn't happen to Democrats. Yet they're the most racist party.
100 years. For as long as there have been Democrats, there have been racists.
Yeah.
They were the ones that were behind slavery right up to the Civil War, and they were the Southern Democrats who were behind Jim Crow for 100 years that followed. And then they took the credit for the civil rights movement.
Which is interesting, because every Republican in the 60s civil rights legislation voted for it, and all of the votes against it were all members of the Democratic Party, by the way. And that was in the 1900s, right? Say again?
That was those senators that voted against the civil rights bill in the 60s were the best buddies of Joe Biden when he joined the Senate in 72.
Yeah. You know, and that just leads it to, and he was, remember, wasn't he like best friends with, it was a bird who was a Cyclops or Grand Poobah or whatever they call it in the KKK. And the thing is, if you look at Joe Biden and all of the things, you know, the anti-busing stands, the all the racist comments he made about 7-Elevens and Barack Obama being the first clean, articulate black person he's met, and he doesn't want his kids going to a urban jungle. All, I mean, very racist things. Then you look at the policies that he allegedly put in place and signed by executive order as president. They don't match up with the historic Joe Biden at all, and we kind of know why, don't we?
Yeah, because literally POTUS was being hijacked by the shadow government.
Yeah, and that's straight up treason.
Our time we had the hearings on that once this budget and tax bill gets finished. This
the
summer,
big, beautiful bill.
like 74.
So, well, do you think it's going to get through the House, the bill? I think Johnson will bring that home. It's the Senate that's going to be the...
There's no way they can allow the tax increase that would follow if it isn't passed.
Yeah. Yeah. The left doesn't like the fact that calls for finishing the southern border wall. It doesn't like it calls for adding, I don't know, I forget the number, a lot of, you know, agents on the Border Patrol. The fact that you had every Democrat basically vote on party lines against no taxes on tips and Social Security, which Social Security wasn't taxed until 83. That way, and you know, that was something, you know, Biden supported as a senator, and it was raised under Clinton. Clinton raised the tax under Social Security in his term. And so going to, you know, it would be not implementing, it would be returning to no tax on Social Security.
Joe, I've heard on that one, it can't be included in this bill. There's something that wouldn't allow for it to happen. But they just had a Senate bill, legislation yesterday to approve no tax on tips. The vote was 100-0.
Yeah. All right, we're against the clock, Ken. Thank you for the call. Always appreciate it. All right, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, 508-871-7000. We're going to take our third and final break. We'll come back on the other side with our fourth and final segment. We'll finish up the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here at AM 830 WCRN. Stick with us. And don't forget, we're streaming. You can watch it on Facebook, Twitter, or Rumble. Back in 2 and 10, folks.
This is Jerry Doherty, host of Making Money Last, right here on WCRN. Like all business owners, I'm interested in why people choose to work with Boston Independence Group. So I asked my clients. The most common response, Jerry does not try to be all things to all people. Boston Independence Group is specialized, focused solely on retirement planning. My customers enjoy the difference. We do one thing, and we do it exceptionally well. Help other people live better in retirement. That's it. If you're ready to retire or making plans to retire, we can do for you what we've done for hundreds of other retirees throughout New England. Live better in retirement. Just give me a call. I'll show you how. My toll-free number is 877-772-1776. Again, that number is 877-772-1776. And you can visit us on the web at bostonindependencegroup.com. bostonindependencegroup.com.
Are you ready for a change? Do you need a job that works around your schedule? How about driving your own kids to school and getting paid for it? AA Transportation is offering paid CDL training with regular permit classes that get you on the road. They have immediate openings for school bus and van drivers, as well as monitors across several districts. All you need is a good driving record with at least 5 years experience, a clean quarry, the ability to pass a pre-employment drug screening and DOT physical. If you already have a school bus or 7D certificate, join us now and earn up to $30 an hour with guaranteed minimum hours, health and dental benefits, plus a 401k. And for those experienced coach bus drivers out there, we have a position for you too. This is perfect for parents, retirees, or anyone who enjoys being behind the wheel. Call Lori at 774-361-5042. That's 774-361-5042. Start your journey with AA Transportation.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. You can join the conversation for the remainder of the minutes we have here at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. You know, years ago, when the Pike was getting rid of the toll booths and putting in the gantries and all of that, and I was on the air with Mike and I were together back then. And I was saying, this is opening a very bad door. It's the camel's nose under the tent. This is going to result in more toll roads or worse tracking us. And remember, why am I drawing? I am having trouble with the names today. Former governor, short black guy. Can't believe I actually. Ted, what's the name? Deval Patrick. Thank you. Why? It just came to me. Deval Patrick actually, remember, was talking about putting, the little sticker we have to put on our plates every couple of years when we renew our registration, to be putting an EF sticker in there to be able to track your vehicle. And it's back on the floor here. Democratic Senate Majority Leader Cynthia Crean wants to slap a mileage cap on our personal vehicles to, of course, fight climate change. So, yes, our vehicles are responsible for a good percentage of emissions. Duh, right? So she's introducing this bill. She built another bill, right? The one that to expand the charging stations and stuff, which is, I don't have a problem with that. One of the biggest detractors to having an electric vehicle is that there's not a lot of charges. I mean, unlike the gas stations that are every corner, sometimes 3 or 4 at the same corner. So the infrastructure to support these electric vehicles aren't really there, and people have that charge anxiety. You think you have it bad with your phone? Imagine having to, drive hundreds of miles or something, or always constantly having to go sit and have a cup of coffee for an hour and a half while your car charges up. That's not the point here. So now this bill, and she's introducing it, and it's a vehicle mileage cap to limit the annual driving tracked via a state-run system. Now, this could be done through odometer checks or GPS, probably GPS. So the details how they want to track you isn't quite clear. But if you exceed the cap, it could trigger fines. Now, she's saying, and it's so nice of her to say, there'll be some exemptions for rural residents, emergency workers, and possibly low-income drivers. Who decides what's low income? Because just because you might make $100,000 doesn't mean you can afford this if you've got a couple of kids and heavy mortgage. You know the drill. So this bill also offers incentives for electric vehicles. So again, if you go to electric vehicle, you do what we want you to do, then we'll give you these incentives. But if you don't, you get punished. Now, the Department of Transportation would be the ones to assess greenhouse gas impacts, right? Well, a public hearing is set for June. So that's when this is going to be heard, or the public gets to have their say in it. Cream told WBUR we need to bold action to meet our climate mandates. See, this goes back to that 2050 bill here, or goals that Massachusetts had set for carbon emissions. So Cynthia Crean Senate Majority Leader is the bill's champion. Now you have environmentalists who are backing this, Sierra Club, who see it as a critical step for cutting emissions. But we, the drivers, most of us, especially those that don't live right in the city and either don't have cars or drive very, very little, we're not cool with this. Because if you live in suburbia, much less rural, you need a vehicle just to function. Especially those of us who might live in rural Western Massachusetts. Fearing limits on work commutes and family travel, businesses. What about delivery service, contractors? They're already, people who have, even traveling salesmen, people who need a vehicle as part of their business. And this is so stupid. So I hate to be right sometimes, but I absolutely talked about this well over a decade ago, that when the technology got here that we could use gantries and we didn't need to be, to have toll booths anymore. That means we have the technology to monitor every vehicle on the road at all times, even if it's as simple as cameras, plate readers, reading your plate, which is the backup for a toll booth, right? If you don't have your Easy Pass, it just reads your plate and sends you the thing. So that's on the drawing board, guys. Be aware of that. That's coming down the pike. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. So obviously, immigration is a totally different thing going on under the Trump administration, but the practical implementation, what's going on, has these real world consequences. Just happened in Lowell, where federal agents swooped in on this roofing company and they arrested 11 undocumented workers. So we've seen this happen. We've seen it. There was a story out of Florida about this as well, that they're going to either places that are known to have illegals working or that they get tipped off. So happened in Lowell. So this roofing company, ICE moved in, checked people's IDs. It's a work enforcement operation, they call it. This is back on May 16th. So as part of a broader push to hold employers accountable and deter unauthorized employment. Now, when it comes to immigration, that's always been my position. Everybody, you got to do, yes, you got to have the border, you got to have ICE, you got to have border patrol, you got to have all of that. But the way that you either encourage self-deportation, which, by the way, this whole border patrol, this homecoming operation that they've implemented, I touched on it on a previous show. The conservative number, if ICE has to find you and arrest you because you did something bad, you're illegally, and then you commit a crime, they go after you. It's about conservatively $17,000 that process costs us. So this new homecoming program that Trump's administration kicked in says if you voluntarily self-deport yourself, and we just sent the first flight yesterday, I think 65 people took this up. You get a free ticket home to your home country, and you get $1,000 as an incentive. So 65 people went to the airport, flew home to their countries, got $1,000 debit card. They waited there with food and water and even toys for the kids, tried to make it a good experience. And that's about $4,000. So roughly the homecoming program is about a $4,000 obligation to the taxpayer, but that's versus $17,000 plus because of the cost. I mean, so what are we talking about? $13,000 handcuffs? I mean, that's a big gap. But if we have to spend all that man hour times with the agents to track them down, then arrest them. Then, of course, they our responsibility if they're taken into custody. So it means we've got to protect them, got to feed them, got to clothe them, got to house them, and then we have to deport them. So homecoming has kicked in. First 65 have gone down. But this immigration enforcement, they've been doing this all over the country. The Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986 requires businesses to verify workers' eligibility. That's the Form I-9, right? And ICE's I-9 inspection program is key to a total insurance of and compliance of the policy. And I've always said that if you really want to stop people from coming here, and if you want people to self-deport, you got to go on the other end, and that is enforcing with the companies that they can't hire people who don't have a legal right to work. That's not that difficult. Because if you come here and a company is not willing to hire you off the books because you're illegal, there are other reasons that the underground economy, right? That people get paid cash and under the table. But if that's the reason, then you hold the employer responsible. And if you can't rent a property, or much less buy a property, if you don't have legal status in the country, then there's not a lot of options, right? They're either going to self-deport because they can't get a place to live and they can't get a job, so it's better off going back unless they have a legitimate asylum claim. So this happened in Lowell the other day. The raid follows other high-profile actions, like back in March, there was a sweep through Massachusetts that nabbed 370 undocumented immigrants, many with criminal records. That's the key there too, right? So it was ICE, DEA, and ATF on this particular one, and Homeland Security investigators. It was a Lowell-based roofing company, and the 11 that they arrested were from Ecuador. They're Ecuadorian nationals, and they were all here illegally. And they took the raid took place at a staging area with agents using interviews and record checks to confirm their worker status. And according to ICE's press release, alleged unauthorization hiring practices. But we're coming to the end here of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN, AM 830 Radio Central. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget, you can always subscribe to the show as a podcast or on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, you can get it here as well. And that will wrap this up. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock for the Thursday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Joe out.